Hello, beautiful light-filled souls. My name is Trisha Barker, and I'm here in gorgeous St. Croix today. I would like to talk about the divine masculine and feminine in the form of archetypes. And I'm just going to briefly touch on a few of these archetypes. And I want you to think about how you embody these particular archetypes. You may not embody them all, and there may just be a few that you resonate with, but I want you to think about enhancing the qualities that are beautiful about these particular archetypes. And as I watch the ocean interact with the land, I think about how these energies can be subtle and soft in the way that the water blends with the earth and creates this wonderful sand to walk on. Think about how these particular energies, none of these energies should be harsh or toxic or mean. These are beautiful energies when expressed in their divine form. So the first energy that I would like to talk about is the God and Goddess archetype, a very familiar energy. And especially to near-death experiencers who have been in the presence of God, we know God is so inclusive and so loving and accepts us exactly where we are in life. So no matter who you are, no matter what you are doing, God does love you. God may not approve of all of our actions and choices, but whoever we are, regardless of race, regardless of nationality, position in life, we are accepted where we are. And people who embody this goddess or God archetype are very accepting and inclusive. They create these spaces for people to feel at ease and confident in life. They often inspire creativity in people, so they make great leaders, people who are a part of this archetype. They allow people to express their creativity, take chances, to be their best self. A lot of motivational speakers might be embodying this particular archetype. It's a creative archetype, so in the goddess form, she's known for giving people great ideas. The God archetype as well might seed wonderful ideas in people's minds that later become businesses or later become, even books or who knows, whatever that particular person is creating in life. That idea might originate from someone who's very inspirational. The next archetype that I would like to talk about is the Queen and King archetype. And the Queen Mother archetype is common and the most accepted archetype for women in society. Of course, it is a wonderful archetype when it is in its selfless form and when it is in its abundance creating and generating form. So both the Queen archetype and the King archetype are responsible for the abundance of their household, and so that's a key factor in this. But they're also very selfless, mature, grounded people. They understand the importance of bringing life into this world, and they are there to foster that life and to allow their children to become who they want. They're also there to create community, and they're very good at community building. So that is another part of this. The King archetype is also very grounding. You might think of the two of them as well-seasoned and mature. They're not juvenile in nature. They don't create a lot of drama. They are stable people, and that is a wonderful archetype for bringing children into this world and for creating healthy communities. The next archetype is largely misunderstood for women, sometimes subjugated and repressed. The Priestess is a archetype that is very intuitive and in touch with the natural world. So women's spirituality is sometimes looked down on or even considered evil by people. It's a way of pushing away this intuition that is very important for society, and especially for her own growth and development. The Priestess archetype is a very peaceful, wise person, and she is able to know herself very deeply in a deep and integrated way. The priest archetype is sadly looked down on as weak sometimes, and that is not at all what a man embodying the priest archetype should be looked at. A spiritual man who knows himself deeply and is intuitive has the ability to combine strength and grace and kindness, and that is a beautiful way to interact with the world. So if you've ever seen someone walk into a chaotic situation, but he brings peace to that situation, and I would call that strength. I would not call that a weakness. Now, people who are walked over and do not see the value of their self, I think that is sad, So I think part of the goal of the priest archetype is to value his own intuition, and the priestess, that is part of her goal, is to not let society push down her gifts, but to embody them. The next archetype that I would like to talk about is highly misunderstood on both sides. So this is the lover archetype, and people who are embodying this archetype are playful and flirtatious and very much in their body. They love the senses. For women, it is largely misunderstood because of the old theory of the Madonna whore complex. So women are either put on a pedestal and they are worshipped, and I'm too good for her, or she's too good for me, that whole idea of she is a goddess, or they are looked at as objects. And so we see in our society, with advertising, movies, and of course pornography, how women are incredibly objectified, so much so that we forget about her emotional world and her spiritual journey and the sacred journey that she is on in this life. She becomes nothing more than an image, and that's incredibly sad and incredibly immature. If you see someone who is embodying that archetype, she may love food or dance or be very much in her body. It isn't an archetype about seducing a lot of people. That comes from a sickness or a toxic urge, perhaps connected with this archetype. But someone who dresses in a way that is incredibly revealing, maybe tempting to lure someone in, but maybe not for the love of life. And that's this archetype in its healthiest form. Just loves life, loves food, loves everything about being alive, loves the natural world, is happy just to take her next breath and to be here on this planet. This archetype is often abused because people don't understand, how joyful it is, and that the flirtatiousness is not an invitation for domination. It is just an invitation for everyone to enjoy life. The lover, when it's expressed in the male version, we're so familiar with male sexual energy in our culture. It's a familiar energy, but it's often an immature energy as well. So you think of everyone from the young player to the old perv, and you think of how that's expressed, and it's sad. It's so one-dimensional. This is not about his spiritual journey or his interaction with the world. It's more about domination and attaining someone. And that's how that energy is perverted. How it can be used and should be used in a beautiful way is the same way. Just an interaction with the world in a joyful, playful, happy way. So he's very much in his body. The American culture, men don't seem to pay as much attention to the way they dress. And I'm not saying like peacocking in this kind of wild way, but just paying attention to how clothes feel and how they make you feel, and not in a narcissistic way, but just in a way of engaging with the world. I think that's a beautiful part of this archetype. So largely misunderstood, not at all about romance. It's more about how you engage with the world and love this world and encourage other people to savor their food, to enjoy the moment. And that's how this archetype should be viewed, and it's so often sadly perverted. The next archetype that I would like to talk about, and it's one that is also not understood, the warrior and warrioress archetype, we look at the female version of it and have very few examples of what this means, and I would like to explain how it can be played out in society in a different way and should be looked at as a beautiful part of society. So the warrioress can create safety for people, might do this in a variety of ways. So she doesn't necessarily go to battle, but she fights the good cause. She fights for a good cause, and not even in a going out and fighting kind of way, but in a grounding peace and love in certain situations and healing. So when I think of the women who supported the civil rights movement and didn't have to support this movement, they were hoping for a more inclusive, loving world, and that's a beautiful trait. I also think of how at times I have embodied this archetype. As a junior high teacher, I created safe spaces for kids who were not in safe situations to tell me what they were going through in their lives, and I had to call CPS and call police officers and tell, various people about what was going on in these kids' lives, and I had to ground a certain peace for them to make it through this world. And that was, part of the warrioress archetype, is not turning away from people in pain, but facing it, taking it on, and doing your best to create a world that is safer for other people. And I continue to do this at the college level. After our recent election, I teach at a majority-minority campus, and I allow students to process their fear about what living in America might be like if hate crimes go up. And I also teach them, though, the importance of not engaging in an angry way with situations. So it's very important to ground your own peace in this world, but it's also important to perhaps take a self-defense course. I think everyone has the right to defend themselves in their world, but they don't have the right to be aggressive to other people. And so defense is a very different way of looking at the warrior and warrioress archetype. I have taken several self-defense courses, and so I highly recommend them to other people. The warrior archetype is sadly overused for men in our culture, and it isn't given the respect, perhaps, that it needs. The warrior archetype is one that should be valued, and it should be used as a last resort when we're talking about the military. I read a book by Brian Dories, and he used Greek tragedies to help people coming back from the military, both people in the military and the families, and they were allowed to process these moments. And processing pain and PTSD is incredibly important. This happens a lot in my classrooms, creative writing classrooms. Students are telling their fellow students about, a friend or family member who committed suicide, or they're processing various other moments in their life, and these moments become part of our community, and they become something that we all carry and understand to some degree, or don't understand, but still feel connected to that person. And community is incredibly important. So the warrior and warrioress archetype is an archetype of creating safety and safe spaces in our world. Safe spaces should not be made fun of. They're incredibly important for people who are in deep pain and deeply afraid. It allows them to enter the world and become stronger at a later date. The archetype that I want to talk about next is the wise woman and wise man, the sage. During difficult times in our lives, in our world, the wise woman is someone we often run to. Her counsel is incredibly important. And I think of many therapists who might be this wise woman, people who are having marital problems, or people who are going through something incredibly difficult in their life. Sometimes they might get the exact right advice from that person. So this seasoned wisdom is something that's of great value to society, and the wise woman is someone who brings that calmness and that confidence to help people navigate the world. So maybe she's experienced it, or maybe she's seen enough to help people along the way. Her intuition is incredibly important, and I think both the wise woman and the sage are sometimes teachers or spiritual leaders because they have a lot to say to others to help guide them and to help them in their lives. And the sage embodies some of that same energy of wanting to give advice to help others live better lives. And that's a very beautiful, kind, grounding energy. So I hope that you might take something from each of these archetypes, and the ones that you resonate with most of all, you might think about how you can enhance the beautiful part of it in your life, and then just enjoy this world through these ideas of the various archetypes. But may you be blessed.